For decades, they were the couple America rooted for. The smiles, the chemistry, the tiny glances on live TV that said, "This is real. This is love." So when news broke that in this imagined alternate world, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos were no longer together, a wave swept across America. Not just shock, but something deeper. A feeling like a familiar chapter of our own lives had closed. But what if I told you that what happened after the heartbreak is what truly stunned the world? And that both Kelly and Mark made choices, unexpected, vulnerable, courageous choices that became lessons in resilience for millions. Stay with me until the end, because this story isn't about gossip. It's about rebirth. It's about finding yourself again when the world thinks your story is over. This is their journey. When the announcement broke, the first tremor came quietly. No dramatic press conference, no staged photographs. Just a simple, carefully worded message released early in the morning when most Americans were pouring their first cup of coffee. In this fictional world, Kelly and Mark, after decades of marriage, announced they were parting ways. And for a moment, time seemed to stop. People who grew up watching Kelly on mornings before school. People who watched Mark rise through decades of acting and hosting. People who saw their family evolve from young newlyweds into proud parents. All felt the loss like a crack in their own memories. Because Kelly and Mark weren't just celebrities. They were proof, hope, that real love could thrive under the spotlight. And suddenly, that hope felt shaken. But the real surprise wasn't the announcement itself, it was what came next. The shift toward Mark. After the shock settled, attention naturally drifted toward Mark. What would he do? Would he disappear from the public eye? Would he run from the whispers and speculation? But in a move no one expected, he didn't hide. He paused. He breathed. And he stepped forward not as an actor, not as a host, not as Kelly's longtime partner, but simply as Mark, a man standing at a crossroads. His statement wasn't dramatic. It wasn't polished. It was honest, almost painfully honest. He spoke about endings, not as failures, but as beginnings with unfamiliar shapes. He said he was grateful, grateful for the years shared, grateful for the family created, grateful for every lesson held in the quiet corners of the marriage. It wasn't a speech for headlines. It was a speech for the heart. And millions listened, because many of those millions had walked the same road: divorce, loss, reinvention. And in his calm voice, they heard their own echoes. Mark's first astonishing move. But words were only the beginning. The world assumed Mark would drown himself in work, or distract himself with lavish projects, or retreat into long nights of silence. Instead, he took a turn no one predicted. He devoted himself to his children. Not for publicity, not for cameras, but for comfort and connection. He stepped away from the noise, from the spotlight, from the assumptions. He showed up at every event, every milestone, every quiet moment that mattered. And in those little snapshots, graduations, gallery openings, wrestling matches, America saw not a man broken, but a man rebuilding, brick by brick, step by step, choice by choice. But just when the world believed they finally understood his path, Mark surprised them again. The unexpected reinvention. Rumors swirled. Was he retiring from on-screen life? Was he drifting away from the Kelly&Mark era entirely? Then, like the twist of a page, a new chapter began. Mark quietly invested in a historic Italian soccer club. Not a flashy purchase, but a thoughtful one. A seed for the future. A statement of growth. A reminder that life's biggest leaps often come in stillness. And he didn't stop there. He founded a documentary company, one focused on stories of perseverance, discipline, and human endurance. Every film echoed the message he lived. Pain does not end you. It reshapes you. This wasn't reinvention for fame. It was reinvention for purpose. Kelly's silence and strength. While Mark opened new doors, the world turned to Kelly. One question filled every timeline. How is she handling this? But Kelly didn't answer. Not publicly. She sat in her studio chair, poised, warm, professional, and hosted her show with the same spark she always had. But those familiar with her, those who watched every morning for years, noticed something. A pause between jokes, a softer expression when family came up, a quick glance at the camera that said, "I'm walking through this, one day at a time." Her silence wasn't avoidance. It was strength. A woman choosing dignity over spectacle, control over chaos, grace over gossip. And America respected her for it. But then came the surprise. Despite the imagined divorce in this alternate storyline, Kelly and Mark did not disentangle their professional lives. Not fully. Their joint production company continued operating. Their creative ventures intertwined. A separation of hearts, but not a rupture of legacy. It was a business decision, but also a message. They weren't erasing the past. They were reorganizing the future. And the viewers? They felt it. Their morning show took on new layers, subtle smiles, unspoken acknowledgments, and fleeting hints of shared memories. The result wasn't drama. It was authenticity. And authenticity is irresistible. The family that held steady. Through all this, one thing never wavered. Their devotion to their children. Michael's graduation, Lola's artistic debut, Joaquin's athletic achievements. Despite everything, they remained united. Not romantically, but parentally and profoundly. Family pictures occasionally surfaced, not posed, not staged, but real. A comforting reminder, families don't disappear, they evolve. And then there was the twist no one expected. Not scandal, not rivalry, not bitterness, but peace. Over time, in this fictional universe, Kelly and Mark reached a place deeper than reconciliation, a place of mutual respect, shared history, and quiet understanding. They became something the world rarely sees, two people choosing to honor what was while embracing what could be. And in that choice, they gave millions of viewers a new definition of love. Love isn't always holding on. Sometimes it's letting go with grace. What their journey teaches us. So what does this story, this imagined alternate journey, really tell us? It tells us that life will change, sometimes suddenly, sometimes painfully. But endings, even unexpected endings, can be doorways. Mark found new purpose. Kelly found new strength. their family found new shape. And millions watching from home, people in their 60s, people who've lived through marriages, divorces, losses, and reinventions, found something else: hope. Because no matter your age, your stage, or your past, you can still begin again. And sometimes, those new beginnings are more beautiful than anything you left behind. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own journey, leave a comment below. Your story matters too. And remember, life doesn't end when love changes. Sometimes it finally begins.